It's the Blake Sloan Real Estate Show. He's been featured in Forbes magazine, the Wall Street Journal, Realtor magazine, and many other national publications. He's been on Fox News, ABC, and NBC. He's endorsed by Barbara Corcoran, Sean Hannity, and Glenn Beck. It's a truly amazing story. Industry leaders have dubbed him the Real Estate Whiz Kid. Here's Blake Sloan and the Blake Sloan Real Estate Show.
Welcome to Blake Sloan Real Estate Show. Good afternoon. Got a brand new show. Tons of great information. There's lots going on in the real estate world right now we'll talk about. And the main thing we'll talk about initially here is just the brand new macro market numbers. We have those in. We mentioned that last week's show. We talked about the micro numbers. This time we're talking about the macro, which is like, hey, what's the Grand Strand doing? What are we looking at? It was interesting because it was one of the first declines we've seen year versus year, which is pretty significant. But the good news is our new pending deals are smoking hot. They've been up almost to summer numbers this last week. We're over 700 new properties per week going under contract, over $222 million in the last 7 days under contract, which is huge. And we were down into the 500s in terms of properties under contract. We'll talk about that today, what that means going forward. I do think we'll see a bounce back here, which is great news. I don't know how long that will be for, but we'll talk about that. Also, we're getting this question a lot here. Is the market going to crash? Right? We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the data that really helps me understand and feel that that's not necessarily going to be the case and not going to crash, which I think is very, very good in that scenario. And also, here's one thing that's a great report that we've been talking about. We're seeing it's no question that, everything's changing right now. But really, here's the crazy thing. Does your house have what buyers want right now? There's a new report out that shows that it might not. And I'll talk about why that is. And it's very powerful to look at. And it's the same thing that we've been experiencing, the same thing that we're seeing a lot of times here in terms of people now working remotely and looking for different things in terms of what they want. So we'll talk about that. Look at some national numbers. There's some good news regarding national numbers, which is awesome. Interest rates, we have some news there. Interest rates are back up a little bit. They did get a little better last week, which is great, which is very, very helpful in that scenario. So that's something that's very, very helpful as well. We're also seeing still a huge issue with the appraisals. We're seeing appraisals come in 100,000, some cases 200,000 short. And we just negotiated a $100,000 difference. We actually fixed it and helped correct that and saved our seller $100,000. We'll talk about that. And also, we have brand new success stories. Our team's been absolutely crushing it. I think we're over 150 pending deals right now, which is great. And so that also leads to one thing. We're looking to add to our team. If anyone out there, if you're a realtor listening in any type of business where you're in a service to clients or you want to be in a team that's a winning team that serves at a very, very high level, reach out to us. We'll talk about that, what we have opportunity-wise on our team. But overall, brand new show, lots of great stuff we'll talk about here today.
Wow. Hey, Blake, for any new listeners, just to give them an update, and let's just tell them exactly who Blake is. It's an amazing story. Industry leaders have dubbed him the Real Estate Whiz Kid. He's been featured in Forbes magazine, the Wall Street Journal, NBC, Realtor magazine, and many other national publications. He's been personally endorsed by Sean Hannity and Glenn Beck. Now, one of those by itself is quite an accomplishment, but all of them together, it's unprecedented. Last week, we learned a little bit more about you and your teamwork and how a good portion of your success has come from the trademark systems that you have developed to help both buyers and sellers here in our market. Can you recap quickly for anyone new to the show what those are exactly and a quick overview about how they work?
Yes, and I made a promise to myself to talk about this. I have a different show on a different station. Been doing it over 10 years, and I just noticed the same thing over and over and over and over. And I used to talk about all kind of crazy stuff, but I realized a lot of it didn't address the same problem, the main problem. And the main problem is that consumers, whoever you want to call it, it doesn't matter if they're affluent, how many houses they've sold, how experienced they are. They make this same mistake over and over and over. The mistake they're making is thinking that all real estate agents are the same, and it could not be further from the truth. And so the reality is, just like any doctor, any lawyer, right? If you're charged with a crime you did not commit, right? You don't want just some part-time attorney who's your friend or an acquaintance who's only tried a few cases before. But, right, I want the most aggressive, most really in-tuned, specialized lawyer in that type of law that I can possibly find. But for some reason, people don't demand that same type of excellence and same type of standard when they're dealing with their largest asset. They'll just go with anybody else out there thinking they're all the same. And this could not be further from the truth. Same thing right now, with doctors and COVID, and there's all different types of strategies, and some work, some don't. And thankfully I have a fantastic doctor who's very, very well versed. And so the reality is Who you use matters when it comes to real estate. People make this big mistake. And so the fact is, the single most important variable that determines your failure or success as a home seller comes down to one thing only, period. That's it. That thing is the agent you choose, right? Not the wall color, not the pictures. Has to do really with also the pictures in a way, but not the wall color of the grass. It has to do with how the agent actually executes. And so when you're selling a property, it's just important to remind this, because no matter how many times I say it, people still make this mistake of thinking that agents are the same. So when they're selling a property, there's 118 different variables from A to Z. If each one's handled correctly, it puts money in your pocket. Anything's handled incorrectly, it costs you your hard-earned equity or your money. So the reality is, a lot of agents just try to basically just put the up against the wall, see what sticks, and they do the 3 Ps. One, they promise the world to get the listing. They'll tell you anything and everything to get the actual property. Then they do is they put it to MLS, and 3, they pray that someone brings a seller. Meanwhile, they're down the street trying to get the next listing, because that's how you survive in the business, or at least up until now. And so what we did is said, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be another system, another way to do this. And so set out to create a system. And first thing we did was identify, hey, look, what has to happen in the right order to get to a successful home sale? That's how we know there's 118 different variables. Most agents don't even know that. And so then the second piece of that was we mapped it out and created a system that's proven and repeatable, that creates maximum leverage at every single point to give our client a competitive advantage. And so the system we designed is called the Guaranteed Sold System. The only proven system sells twice as fast and for up to 20% more money than traditional methods, and it works very, very, very well. And so the reality is, a lot of times the agent you have can cost you. I watch this happen all the time. Right now, we're in one of the hottest markets of all time, meaning that mistakes can be made very, very easily. Right now, everybody in the world has a friend in real estate. I think our agents here have doubled since the decline in the market a while back. We used to make 2,500. After that 2008, now we're at 5,500, almost 6,000. Everybody's got 6 friends. The problem is that the average agent sells 4 homes a year. And as more agents have gotten to the business, that creates more problems. And so the reality is, they're not very experienced to handle these nuances in a regular market, much less a super high-pace, high-risk market like there is right now. And so the small mistake that used to cost $5,000 or $10,000 now costs $50,000. And so you got to make sure that that's protected, and you got to make sure that you find yourself an expert in some way. And so what we did, we created that system, that Guaranteed Sold System. And so that's something that gives our client, like I said, a huge competitive advantage in terms of what it does, and it manages the variables proactively. And so on the flip side, there's 100 plus variables on the other side. But one thing I forgot to mention is that agents, if it could be anything, does your agents understand marketing? Do they understand the quality of the photos matter? We just interviewed a lady this week. Her sister's a real estate agent. We looked at the photos. We all about fell out the chair. Literally, it's got the front of the house and the sun shooting at the camera with just blur outs. You can barely see the house. The inside of the house is dark. There is only 6 photos. This is a $260,000 house.
Wow.
And we asked who the heck took these pictures. The agent, her sister, made her take the pictures, meaning that the agent didn't take her own photos, put it into there for her sister, obviously hadn't sold, and it was just disastrous.
Right.
And so the reality is the quality of photos matter. Your first showing happens online now. The order of the photos matter, meaning that buyers search by elimination, so pictures 2, 3, and 4 have to sell them and look at the rest of the photos. It makes a big deal. It makes a difference, right? And so there's so many things to those pieces. Does your agent actually answer the telephone when a buyer calls a for sale sign? We both know that most agents don't answer the phone at all. And so that's because they're too busy, not because they don't want to. But also, do they respond to web inquiries? And if they do they respond? How long does it take them? And so there's so many things that come down, including pricing in terms of negotiation, how they handle appraisals. And so all these variables have to be managed proactively. And how we do that is through 2 things. 1, people, aka a team. We have a team of specialists, 20-plus buyer experts. They're called buyer's agents. 2 listing partners. We have an inside sales team, an outside sales team, administrative team, a closing team, full-time photographer and videographer. Why? Because you have to be able to execute all these things that need to be done, and it's physically impossible for one single person to do it. It's just like having the same person at McDonald's, the front register, the drive-thru, and the french fries at the same time. It's very, very, very inefficient. And so you owe it to yourself to have someone who has the resources that can get you what you need to get the exposure you need, period. On the flip side, we have there's a whole issue with buyers who they try to buy. We create a system called the Unfair Advantage Home Buying System. Gets priority access to foreclosures, distress sales, desperate sellers, the absolute best negotiation and purchase price, as well as home inspection to get you to the closing table successfully. And so The bottom line is I've been in the market since January 2005. I grew up in the business, mom, dad, aunt, uncle, grandpa, grandma. I've never seen so many mistakes happening like it is right now. So we'll talk about more about that. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back here just in a second.
Hi, I'm Barbara Corcoran. I'm excited to connect with Blake Sloan, the only real estate agent in Myrtle Beach that I recommend. You offer several options to home sales, which really takes away the stress.
That's right. For sellers in a time crunch, we can agree to sell it by a certain date, pay cash for your home, or even rent it.
That's great. And if the seller has a bit more time?
We use our proven marketing plan to sell it for the highest price.
Work with my friend Blake Sloan and get your home sold on your terms.
Welcome back to the Blake Sloan Real Estate Show. Got the brand new market numbers in. Two-sided this week, I guess you say. And so we'll look at the overall macro market, right? What's happening on the Grand Strand, what's going on. And we'll look at two main things. Number one, closed sales for single-family homes. That's what the majority of the marketplace is, right? Specifically resale homes. The new construction data, I don't necessarily trust it. A lot of the big builders will sell things without putting it into the MLS, and so you don't really know the true story or what they have off market. So it does really, skew the numbers. And so I like to look at single-family resale homes, which is what the majority of all of us own, what you're concerned about, what you want to talk about, and really know more about. So if you look at sales for single-family resales, it's down 6.2%. It's one of the first months we've seen a significant decline like that in terms of sales in a while, really kind of this year. And so right now, last month, 680 home sales closed, a 6.2% decrease from last year, the same month, where it was 725. And so if you look at the main data that really not necessarily scares me that I've been watching lately is in June, there was 797. So to see a significant drop like that, went from June 797 to 655 in July. The great news is, as later on data has been added, it's really improved. Like I mentioned, it was 8% decline a few weeks ago, but agents put the data in later on. Now all of a sudden, it does help out a little bit. So interesting enough there. The great news, we have new record sales in terms of average sale price for the Grand Strand, up 17.1% at $416,509, which is amazing. Like I said, I used to get made fun of at all of my conferences where I was getting California and Nevada and Florida. I was in the Redneck Riviera at 150, 200,000. So now we're getting up there with the big boys at 416,509. Never thought I'd see that overall, which is interesting. The one thing we talked about briefly a few weeks ago, median price. Median price has been flat for 3 months. A little concerning. It does just kind of show you, hey, look, we may be hitting a little bit of a ceiling in terms of what buyers are willing to pay, what the economy will really sustain for people to have affordability, right? There is a certain point that is no secret. We don't have a huge amount of industry here, unless you're self-employed or, it's very difficult in many cases to afford very, very high-priced homes. And so you may see that plateau. Interesting. The last 3 months, the price has only gone up to $250, and that was 3 months ago. Last 2 months, it's been $325,000 flat. The good news is that's a 20.1% increase in terms of the price, median price from last year. So great news there. Months of supply, that's what's protecting everything, aka inventory. So inventory right now is down 51.7% from the same time last year. It's at 1.4 months. What that means is we're still in an inventory crisis, aka they need your house to sell. We need your house to sell. Everybody's looking for houses because there's so much money, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars right now coming from out of the area, buying properties here. We'll talk about that here in a second. And so that's just something interesting to watch. We're seeing overall showings per listing is down, which is a little worrisome. Showings per listing has been down the last 5 months in a row. It was back in April. It peaked out 8.2. Right now it's 6.8. What does that mean? It means buyer traffic. How many buyers are looking at every listing on the MLS? And this tracks every single one, literally. So that's just something that's important to look and notice. And hey, that has to do a little bit with, people buying early first and second quarter, also buyer fatigue, and a little bit in terms of, just prices being ceilinged out, I guess you say. We've had a lot of buyers who wanted to buy, they just can't afford it anymore. And so that's what led to the next piece, which is our condos. Condo sales are up, which is great, 10.7%. But in that scenario, we're on a 4 month decline in terms of the amount of condos sold per month. We peaked out this year in May at 846. We just finished last month at 660. The good news is a 10.7% increase from last year, the same month, but 4 straight months of decline. Now, that has really been driven by an all-time low of inventory. Everything's been scooped off the shelf, literally. And so what happened was early this year, late last year, people started realizing, like, man, I can't afford these house prices anymore, especially a lot of people we've seen fixed incomes from other areas moving in here. And we've had many that just quit their search because they just got priced out. We literally had people who were scared to come in COVID. They've been looking for 2, 3, 4 years. They waited during COVID, didn't come down. By the time it, opened back up, they couldn't afford it anymore, which is crazy. And so that's something to think about. But what happened was all the previous single-family house buyers then rushed to buy condos. And so kind of like when you got, I guess, back in the toilet paper days, they're trying to get one brand of toilet paper, that sells out, they rush to the next one, and it's the same thing you're seeing there, right? So what's crazy, though, months of supply down 77.8%. So there's 77.8% less condos than there was the same time last year. Right now it's at 1 month of inventory, which is all-time low, and so we'll kind of just break that down. That's just what we're seeing, which will obviously create a decline in sales going forward. The great news is prices up 13.5%. Right now, the median price is $176,000. Average sale price is at $216,512, 11.7% increase from the same time last year, which is great. And right now, they're getting 6.1 showings per listing, which is really good overall in terms of that. 56.4% increase in buyer traffic from the same time last year. So overall, great news, right? The one thing that's helping that a little bit, interest rates are still fairly low. They did jump up, which kind of put a little bit of a dent in there a little while. But right now, for a 30-year fixed rate, we're at 3.22%, which is great. Last week's show, we were at 3.23. Early on this last week, it got down to 3.18. Then it bumped back up, and so we've just seen it kind of stay in that range. But at least it's not jumping up too far. A lot of the what you call it, so-called experts are predicting it'll be significantly higher starting first quarter next year, second quarter. I covered that a few shows ago. 15-year fixed rate, 2.61%. An FHA loan, 2.82%, a jumbo loan, 3.15%, and a 5-year adjust rate mortgage right now is 3.00%. And so that's interesting to look at, and we've seen the rates kind of stay a little bit low. The one last piece I was going to talk about is pending deals. Remember, we were talking last year, we had a huge peak of 900 deals per 7 days going under contract, right, which is interesting. So that was the peak, then went down to 800, then 700, then 600. In the last 2 months, it's been in 580s to low 600s. The last month is bumped back up, and this last week, we've been averaging high 600s to 700 and above per 7-day period. What that means is new pending deals are up, which means we're going to probably see, go ahead and write this down, hold me accountable to it, come back to the YouTube channel, whatever, is that we'll probably see a bump in sales going to next month, right? And so that will probably be the end of next month. So when November's numbers show, you're going to see a bump. Why is that? Because everything under contract, October-ish, takes 30 to 60 days to close. So ideally, you're going to see that bump in November, December, but pumping out 700 properties a week. In the last 7 days, $222,517,277 under contract. Huge, right? So that's a lot for Myrtle Beach in terms of that. Average price, what's getting sold, $309,912. That's the whole Grand Strand. And right now, what's really helpful is the actual properties for sale. We're seeing 580 properties for sale right now in Horry County, which is great. It was in the 530s. And then the all-time low this year, there's like 380 properties. So very, very similar numbers there. So great news overall in that scenario. And the one thing that we're just going to see is just keep watching in terms of what's going on overall. 2 minutes left. All right, so that's something we'll talk about. We do have the hot buyers alert in a second. I'll talk about that here in a minute. I'll just talk about one story that we're seeing that's bringing this money in, hundreds and hundreds of millions from up north. And I had a great, sweet couple in our office. I talked to them yesterday personally. They were buyers from Massachusetts. And it was interesting. They asked me in the lobby. They asked, actually, my wife, who works up front. They said, "Is this a red state?" And I was walking through, and she looked at me like, "Well, no, what'd I say?" And and so they asked again, and my wife said, "Yeah." And I came back out, and they're like, "What's it like with the mask and the mandates and things like that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we're red state. Obviously, it's pretty open. Depending on what you want to do." They didn't have masks on, and they just let loose. and they said, we hate the mask mandates. We hate the passports. We have to have the vaccination cards to go anywhere.
Yeah.
And they're just angry. And they talked about, they were asking me, ironically, about the governor and the things that the governor was doing. And I said, look, our governor believes that, we're an independent republic here. I do remember reading a fantastic article. Some like him, some don't. But I read a fantastic article when the lockdown started last year on how McMaster was a constitutional kind of big scholar in a way, where he really studied that when he was a U.S. attorney. And that was something he was really big on, is honoring the Constitution. And thankfully we have that here so far, because anytime you travel, you see that pain. But my point is, there's a lot of angry people who are feeling the pain of the tyranny in a way that are coming down here. And guess what they're doing? They're spending money. They're selling their houses up here. And we'll talk about that here after this next break. We'll have a hot buyers alert. Tons of buyers from the Northeast and all over right now.
Hey Myrtle Beach, it's Gary LaVox, lead singer of Rascal Flatts. When I'm Moving On won the award for ACM Song of the Year, it struck a chord with folks who understand the challenges that come with life's big changes. For many, that happens when it comes time to sell their home. If you're moving on, you want a real estate agent who will make selling your home easy and stress-free. An agent who's willing to let you out of the contract if you're not happy with their service. That's why in Myrtle Beach, I can tell you that Blake Sloan of Sloan Realty Group markets your home on a whole different level. Now listen, Blake is so confident in his ability to sell your home quickly and for more money that he guarantees to sell it or he'll buy it himself. If you're moving on, trust Blake to provide your family a stress-free home sale experience. Find Blake Sloan online at blakesloan.com, or you can call him at 843-808-SOLD and start packing.
Welcome back to the Blake Sloan Real Estate Show here on Talk. There's a hot buyer's market right now, and these are hot. Blake and his team are working with a ridiculous amount of home buyers who are looking for homes in the Myrtle Beach area from $150,000 to $3.5 million. If you're thinking of selling your home, please contact Blake immediately at 843-808-SOLD. That's 843-808-SOLD.
Yes, and that's one thing that's talk about everything that we like to talk about is like, hey, we're in a huge seller's market right now, specifically a super seller's market, and we need inventory. That's why we share that, because everybody asks, like, hey, what's the difference between you and anyone else? And the reality is, overall, the bottom line is our business model is much different. I mentioned it earlier in terms of how it's set up, but based on how it is, I have to feed our buyer team of 20-plus agents that all day, every day, they work with buyers. That's it, right? We have a team of specialists. Remember that. And so I do the marketing, lead generation, and we get global reach for that. But because of that, we can outspend the average agent 100 to 1 from a marketing standpoint. Now, why does that matter? Why do I talk about that? It's not to brag, but it's to tell you that we have access to buyers before you ever pick up the phone to call me. And so that's how we're able to get more of a result. We sell homes faster, and we sell them for more money. I've told the story on the show before about the classic Corvette, right? You want to get massive exposure, international and national exposure, aka the more eyeballs you get, the more the chances increase that you find a buyer who's willing to pay a premium to buy your house. And so we do that by outspending it. And so every week I think is important. One of the most powerful things we do is we open up, behind the curtains and show you, hey, look, here's what we do. Here's what we have. And we show literally the real-time active buyers we have. And right now, I like to share every week and have Glenn see that as well. How many buyers we have right now?
Drum roll. 64,967.
64,967 buyers that we've already acquired, spent money to acquire, spending tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars every single month to drive traffic and obviously acquire buyers that we're able to bring to your property. And so the other agents, the average agent, you call them, you call your friend or whoever it is, and they then put a sign in the yard. They put it into the Walmart parking lot, which we talked about, is just a for sale sign at MLS, and then they hope someone brings it. With us, we're super aggressive in that terms because our business model allows us to do so. We have buyers from all over the Northeast, the United States, and like right now on the site, we like to share that at any time that someone calls us. Like when you call us, we sit down and say, look, here's our actual buyers. You can watch them search in real time in terms of what they're doing. Like right now, I have Nancy and Ed Crum. They're from State College, PA. They're on the site right now. They got 4 current favorites. I got Craig from Kennesaw, Georgia. I've never heard of this place. Here, I got Charles Jackson from Metamora, Illinois. Heard of that one?
No.
I got Rosanna from Brookhaven, PA. I got Justin from Utica, Michigan. I got Syracuse, New York. I got Keene, New Hampshire. I got Georgetown, Bahamas. There we go. And these are real people. How do we know where they're from? Because it tracks their IP address. So it knows based on the internet connection where they're at. And that's also a tool that we use. Then I've told Glenn about this before. I mention this every once in a while. But when I first got in the business, I was a big into internet marketing. That was 2005, 2006, right? I studied everything. I was at a RE/MAX office at the time. My broker did not have a computer. 2005 now, literally no computer.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
And I was big in internet marketing. I was like the young kid in the block. And my coworkers, the people there, they made fun of me, and they called me the internet kid. And they literally made fun of me. And what I found was that people in the Northeast, they saw what we had here as a deal. Their average sale price is much higher. They'd sell a similar 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Buy it down here, significantly less cost and less taxes. That was a huge advantage for me because I figured out how to use the IP addresses and geo-target them based on where they're at and serve ads to them. Meanwhile, the other agents are trying to figure out their email. And so because of that, that's how we're tapped into the Northeast where there's so much money. And that's how we're able to sell properties to people that see value in what they have, a.k.a. pay a premium, right? So right here, I got New Philadelphia. I got Aiken, South Carolina. What's this weird one? Califon, New Jersey. Kings Plank, New York. I got Hanover, Maryland. Brooklyn, New York. Scotch Plains, New Jersey. Lemoore, Georgia. I got Wayne, New Jersey. Here we go. Healdsburg, California. So the reality is, the reason I share that because they're real people from all over. We sit down with you. We show exactly who they are, where they came from. And then we have an algorithm that we can take any new listing. Obviously, we like to take our listings, and we use this algorithm software to reverse engineer the most likely buyer for that property and where they're at. Like right now, perfect example, I'll pull a random property. There's a brand new property off of Highway 90. It's $465,000. Sorry, it's in Conway, South Carolina, off of Highway 90. $194 square foot. We have 123 buyers that currently match that right now. I click a button. Right now it's spinning and it's calculating based on their previous search pattern. And so it takes all different things. Right now, the number one match, I have a Kelly Dawson from Bowie, Maryland. She's a 92% match for that property. I have Billy Blake. He's a 92% match. And I have Mark Weiss. He's from also Maryland. But check this out. He's already viewed the property 2 times online, I can tell. And so I have the system here. We go through, we click the box. I can call all of them through what we have called a power dialer. The power dialer calls them back to back to back to back. So we can call 100 people in 30 minutes. One of our sales team specialists does that. They do it for all our new listings. Why is that? Because that's what we're in business to do, is sell houses, right?
Right.
And so they call them and say, hey, Kelly, we got a brand new listing. It matches exactly what you're looking for. Do you want to take a look at it? What's she going to say? She's not going to say that she doesn't want to. Why? Because she's been to our site. In this scenario, she's got 21 current favorites. She's looked at 956 properties. And she likes us, obviously, because she's searching on.
She's looked at 956 properties. Wow.
Yep. And the reality is, guess what? She's going to like this because it's exactly what she wants.
Right.
Oh, yeah, by the way, Kelly, I'll send you an email right now. Take a look at it. When can you come down from Maryland? This weekend? Boom. That's how we do it. Again, a lot of times people are just waiting to be, we call them order takers. Agents just order takers. With us, we're using technology. We're proactive in how we operate. And we do this to make sure we can create a difference for our client. But here's the thing. Our agents are incentivized to sell. They get paid a higher split. They sell one of our listings. They want to be able to sell those as fast as possible. And that's what you, the seller, hired us to actually do. Now, if they don't answer, guess what we do? Leave a voicemail. Hey, Kelly, guess what? We have a brand new listing. Matches exactly what you're looking for. Give me a call when you get this, and I'll be more happy to tell you about it. It's over there off of Highway 90 where you like to be. And then all of a sudden, she has something interesting. It's not a cold call. She calls back. So we select another button. I select all here. I'm going to email all 148 people that are here and emails them that specific listing in that scenario, and now they're able to respond back to us. That's the difference of having data and a sales team and 64,967 leads, because it makes a big difference in that scenario. So does that make sense? Did I explain that right, Glenn, or no?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. It's one of those things that, like, if I show it to clients, it absolutely blows their mind. They're just floored because they've never seen anything like it, and it has to do with the technology piece in terms of how we operate. A lot of agents are still operating the old school way. We call it a cassette tape, right? Our business model and our tools and technology like an iPad Pro. And so it makes a big difference there in that scenario. And obviously, we want to help serve you. And the reason we do this show is to get some of these things out. Obviously, I don't like giving too many of our secrets out on the radio.
Right,
but,
right.
I tell just enough. But if you sit down, we literally show you. A lot of agents just tell you. We call it proof versus promises, and it makes a big, big difference in that scenario. So, really quick, couple awesome success stories. Very, very proud. We got Russell and Terry. They used to live in Conway area, but many years ago moved away. They still kept the home in Conway, so they've been using it for a number of years as a rental property. As the years have gone by, it's become more and more difficult to keep up with the property. So they recently made a decision to sell the property knowing the market's at an all-time high and it's a perfect time to sell. Thankfully, they referred to us, Sloan Realty Group, by an amazing radio listener. They contacted Sloan. They came in, shared exactly how to get it sold for top dollar and do it quickly. We came in, designed a custom marketing plan, launched a global marketing blitz, professional photos, virtual reality tour, drove massive traffic. Within a few days, received an above asking offer, aka above price, right? Above asking price. Now, Russell and Terry do not have to be landlords from a distance, and they cashed out on top with maximum equity in their pockets, which is super cool. So that's awesome there. How long? I got 1 minute left?
Yeah, way to go, Russell and Terry. Yeah.
Super cool, right? So
Yeah.
Andrew and his family recently made a decision to move into a new construction home, but in order for them to do that, they need in order for them to move into the new home, they need to sell their current home for top dollar. So thankfully, Andrew heard about Blake Sloan, us from the radio, decided to give us a call first. We came in, designed a custom plan, launched our global marketing blitz, professional photos, the virtual reality walkthrough. Within just 1 day, drove massive traffic, massive buyers, had Andrew and his family a full price offer on their home. Now they can purchase a new construction home without any worry of missing out or losing any money, which is super, super cool. So very, very proud on them on that scenario. How much time we got? 1 minute. All right. So, sorry, my throat's a little scratchy.
No
man.
problem.
All right. So, here's a cool story. I mentioned this last week, but I'm very, very proud of it. Melissa, she was in a very tough situation, needed to sell ASAP. She went online to try to find an investor to buy her out. You know, the local friendly investors, they call it. Mm-hmm. They lowball. Multiple investors lowballed her. Thankfully, she was referred to us by somebody who said, just call Sloan. We came in, we said, hey, we can get you a lot more money and we sell it fast for you. So you don't have to worry about, obviously, because she was a little bit behind on payments. She was worried, though, about the condition of the house, how to fix it up. We said we'll sell it as is with our plan. We got 18 offers on it in just over 2 days, and it got her $20,000 above asking price and $80,000 more dollars than those investors offered her, the highest number. And so we put $80,000 more dollars into her pocket through that just by calling us instead of listening to one of those vultures out there. And the flip side, guess who else does this? And we mentioned this last week. Guess who else will do that? Broke agents who need money to pay their rent, their mortgage, or whatever it is because they sold 4 houses. You see this happen all the time. Most homeowners don't get the second opinion. Right. They don't actually know. So if you want to know more about that, don't leave your equity on the table. Reach out. Give me a call, 843-808-SOLD or blakesloan.com anytime.
Blake Sloan of Sloan Realty Group, the expert in this field, hands down. Blake, how detrimental is that to your sale if you're going to do cell phone pictures and a for sale by owner?
Massively. I'm so glad you brought that up because what people don't realize in today's time is your first showing actually happens online. In the old days, they would see a couple and then they would just go look at it and that would be your first showing. But now they've stalked everything before they've ever gotten there. And so if your pictures online are not good, and here's the thing people don't realize is that we're big on psychology of buyers. So you have to understand the psychology. Pictures 2, 3, and 4, sell them on looking at the rest of the photos, and then the rest of the photos have to sell them on clicking the one button for a showing. If you don't sell them big time on pictures 2, 3, and 4, they're already gone to the next listing. People don't realize that you must have professional photos.
BlakeSloan.com or go to 843-808-SOLD to find Blake Sloan and get your consultation and find out about how he can sell your home and how to launch your global marketing blitz plan with Blake Sloan.
Welcome back to the Blake Sloan Real Estate Show. Last segment here, and we'll kind of freestyle a couple things. I got a couple pieces here. One thing I forgot to mention last success story I think is important really quick is the appraisal issues. We're seeing massive appraisal gaps right now, and we just had one recently for a seller of ours, $100,000 short. Now, most agents would just either recommend the seller sell it for that, or they take it off the market. I've seen both happen on both sides, on the buyer side of the transaction, right? So we went through, disputed the appraisal, broke down all the errors, got a secondary appraisal. We're able to come in and get our seller the extra $100,000 in their pocket. That's a difference of having seasoned, experienced agent who understand how to fix those problems than someone who sold 4 houses in last year. Like, there's so much right now. I know I sound like I'm on a soapbox here, but I see the other side of it, right? And I'm very passionate about it because we're not talking about Best Buy TVs. We're talking about your largest asset. And so it matters how it's handled. It matters that the right people handle it for you. And you got to make sure that all those variables are managed in that process. So super important reminder there. I forgot to mention that last break. And that was Jeremy and our team that helped do that. He did a fantastic job in that as well. So one thing I was going to get at, what do you think that the big thing buyers want is right now? And the question is, the national article came out. Does your house have what buyers want? Question mark.
Open concept.
Open concept. Yep. What do you think's changed recently? The number one thing that's driving the new trend.
I don't know. I give me a hint. Window treatments. No, I just said that.
See Glenn for that for
inside.
Yeah, that's a great plug. See Glenn for the window treatments if you need. But no, what's changed since COVID?
They don't want to see they don't want to be in your house. I mean,
one thing we've seen since COVID is remote work.
Oh yeah.
So check this out, crazy stuff, right? The rise in remote work is changing what many Americans want in their homes, and many companies are choosing to delay reopening or go full-time remote. Today's buyers are looking for homes with more space to support their work needs.
Okay, that makes
so it's a
perfect
huge
sense.
thing, right? And so here's the one thing that came from as a seller: you no longer need the extra room. You have your house, right? Rest assured, there's buyers who do.
Right.
If you're looking to downsize, there's buyers out there who want that space. AK, guess what? A nice home office and nice workspace. Now, here's what's crazy, and we've seen this a lot, right? I've seen this personally in our office. I'll talk about it. But remote work is here to stay. And said remote work remains a reality for many Americans. A recent poll from Gartner Inc. shows that 66% of organizations are delaying reopening their offices due to new COVID-19 variants.
Right.
So what's happening is you're seeing that people are working from home. And the one thing I saw interesting, too, another quote from that same report, said among employees looking for new jobs, almost 1 in 10 say it's because they moved away from the office while working and don't want to go back on site.
Well, and some employers have closed up their brick and mortar. They don't need it anymore. They found out they're getting everything done virtually.
Right. Significantly, right, in terms of that, at least on the Fortune 500 scale. The small business owner, I tested it. I'm like, they are not getting as much work done, period. Watch my numbers. It would be off a cliff every time, right?
Yeah.
Out there playing with the dog or whatever it is. But here's the thing. That's what's driving everything. And so here's what the whole topic is. Remote work means a greater need for home offices. This is leading today's buyers who prioritize finding homes with more space so they can comfortably work from home, which is interesting, right? And it talks about the difference of last year who say that a place to work from home is important.
Right.
In 2020, only 24% of people said that was important to them. No big deal, right? 2021, 48% of buyers said that a place, here goes, an office space or place for virtual meetings was important to them.
Right.
Everybody's Zooming now, doing the Zooms and stuff. So I thought that was very, very interesting. One thing that we are helping our sellers do, and you have extra space, you can easily turn that in. You can get these backgrounds for super cheap off of Amazon. There's a cool stuff you can do to kind of stage that to make it look very, very well. Right. Which I think is pretty cool. We've been helping sellers kind of do that and take any extra space. We've even had a couple of clients finish an attic and make an attic with the AC vent they put in there and help that, which is cool. But it's not a must. But if you're thinking about downsizing, there's a huge need right now because a lot of buyers are moving. We have a guy on our team, Mark, I mentioned before. They're from Washington, D.C., Navy veteran, worked overseas as a contractor. His wife, though, there's something big up with the NIH, and she's now remote worker full-time forever. And so they relocated to Myrtle Beach. He now works for us as an agent, great agent. And that's just a great example of what you're seeing happen right now.
Yeah, I have clients that came from Seattle, and both of them work remotely. They said they could live anywhere in the United States. And I said, how did you find Conway?
Right.
And they just happened to have rented an RV years ago, came through, wanted to bring their daughter to see the ocean for the first time, came through Conway. It was a memory that they had. And when they decided to run from Seattle, run,
literally,
they decided on Conway.
That's crazy. That's one thing that, I think is super important to just realize. And I talk to a lot of people who I've interviewed people from D.C. before, both administratively and also as an agent, and they would commute an hour each way from Northern Virginia.
I lived it.
Yeah, you did. Right? So
I came out of Northern Virginia.
So you're talking 2+ hours a day. 5 days a week. That's obviously 10 hours a week just gone right there extra.
Well, one of my first jobs was doing traffic in Northern Virginia.
Okay.
So I was a radio traffic guy, and watching that mixing bowl. I don't know why people live down in Lorton, Virginia, and then commute up to D.C.
And I interviewed one lady. She did 2-hour commute each way every day.
It's ridiculous.
Crazy, right? So you're seeing that change now. Now they're free. They're coming down here where it's mild climate. The reason they're not going back to Florida when I talk to our clients is they want to be able to get back home within one day.
Right.
If you're in Miami or South Florida or anywhere else, you got a little better weather, but it takes you, 2 days to drive back home. It's not very easy to drive from here to New York. From there to New York. Here it can be done 12 hours.
Yeah, and if somebody lives here now and complains about the traffic, I generally laugh because they haven't seen real traffic.
Yeah, so that's one thing that's important. So moving on, that was one thing that's very interesting. The one thing about the crash, I mentioned this briefly a couple weeks ago, but I was kind of getting to that point too, like, hey, look, this is kind of crazy. Like, I don't know how much this can go. We're getting to a place where it can crash. And one of the big data points I've really been studying a lot lately, I mentioned it before, has to do with the cumulative home gap. This is what's driving a lot of this right now, and this is why I don't think we're going to crash anytime soon. This is why you're seeing so many hedge funds right now still put massive amounts of money into properties. And I have friends in other big markets. They have hedge funds that are just buying properties full price as much as they can, single families, to rent them to hold. Because here's why. Since 2001, there's a cumulative home gap of 5,520,000 houses that were in basically a deficit of the amount of houses needed to house everyone we have.
Okay.
That's why you saw BlackRock and these huge companies get in early. They had access to that data. I'm kind of mad at myself. I didn't have this report prior, but that's one thing you're seeing. Now, I want to couple that with something that I just got early from my stepdad, which is a great article. And it's from Wall Street Journal this past week, and it's from the S&P CoreLogic, index. But it says home price growth stays at record numbers, and it talks about what the economists are saying that are surveyed by Wall Street Journal happening to be expected going forward in the 20-city index they use, which is major cities. A gain of 19.8% is what they're still predicting going forward, which is possible, right? Especially in those indexes. Who do you think had the fastest growing home price in the country?
Myrtle Beach?
No, I wish. Phoenix, Arizona. They've been the top for a while for the 27th straight month.
Wow.
33.3% increase consistently. Isn't that crazy?
Beautiful place, great weather.
I have a few friends that do real estate there. And lastly, this part here, commercial sales reached a record third quarter nationally, which I was surprised at that. But check this out, $193 billion in the last quarter, third quarter. Last quarter. That's up 19% compared with the same 3 months in 2019, right before the pandemic. And so, great news overall in terms of that. And that's just something interesting to look at, right? I think they're repurposing a lot of that commercial space. But also, Myrtle Beach is still hot. Why? Because we're insulated. Everyone's moving from the out of the area. So the one thing you take from today's show, hopefully it served you. Anytime you have any questions real estate related, don't be afraid. We're not going to hassle you. We're not going to bother you. Reach out, call us, 843-808-SOUL. We're here to just serve overall. But if you know anyone that's thinking about something, do me a favor. This show is any value to you. Do me a favor and say, look, you got to call my buddy Blake. Save in your phone, 843-808-SOUL. We'll see you here in the next episode.